We work for a fine family, people of quality, high up in the social world. No breath of scandal has ever touched this house in my time, and if it does, it is not going to happen through the servants.
It's one of the most memorable, groundbreaking and critically acclaimed drama series in the history of ITV. A classic story of love and infidelity, status and snobbery, honour and scandal. With the possible exception of Emmerdale, it's my all-time favourite show. For me, Upstairs Downstairs is must-see TV.
You and I, Rose, we are employed here. What the family does is their business. We're here to do our work and mind our business, not theirs.
You do so much.
What do I do?
You run this house.
The servants do that in their own way. Yes, and a lot goes on that I know nothing about.
I wasn't took on here to wear hand and foot in the bleeding servant. You can say that, sugar, my girl, or I'll knock yourself, you stuck out!
Damn servants. Why in God's name do we have to put up with them?
You're quite correct in saying that Mr. James split an infinitive over luncheon, Edward. I noticed it myself. But don't speak too lightly of the old Etonians or underestimate their importance. Apart from providing this country with a number of prime ministers and colonial governors, we must never forget that they won the FA Cup in 1879. Get away with you now.
Upstairs Downstairs dominated British television for 5 years. It ran for 68 episodes, and what you're going to see in the next half hour is my personal selection of favourite characters and scenes. I think it's the creme de la creme. Starting in the early 1900s, the series lifted the lid on what life was really like behind the closed doors of respectable Edwardian Britain. But look, it's 30 years since Upstairs Downstairs ended, so the first thing I better do is introduce you to the people who lived and worked in 165 Eaton Place. Head of the household is the MP Richard, later Lord Bellamy, whose beautiful wife, Lady Marjorie, is fated to die aboard the Titanic. They have 2 children, the wild and rebellious Elizabeth, and James, whose love life is a continual problem. After a passionate affair with Sarah, once one of the maids, James marries his father's secretary, Hazel, even though the true love of his life is his young cousin, Georgina. Downstairs, the staff come and go over the years, but throughout, they are led by the butler, the no-nonsense Mr. Hudson, and the cook...
It's Mrs. Bridges, if you please, not cook.
Rose, the devoted head parlourmaid, is also ever present. The footmen include the tormented Alfred, the handsome but mysterious Frederick, and chirpy Edward, who marries Daisy, the maid. Lowest in the pecking order are the tweenies, the kitchen maids, Emily, who comes to a sticky end, and the well-meaning, but none too bright, Ruby. So that's who everyone is. I was too young to see the show when it first went out, but my mother introduced me to it when it was repeated, and I simply fell for it. I wasn't the only one. Upstairs Downstairs was an instant smash hit. It had a worldwide audience of billions and won 26 international awards, including 7 Emmys, the American television equivalent of an Oscar.
Listen, Georgina, a small group of people are directly challenging the authority of the government, and all you and your friends can do is to regard it like some huge lark to fill the boredom of your empty lives. Well, I tell you, Georgina, it's damn irresponsible.
I was in the restroom and there were some ladies chatting.
Pompous ass.
Oh my God, I can't go out on Sunday anymore because of Upstairs Downstairs. Well, this is when I was just in there having a pee, thinking, oh my gosh, it is famous.
I bet you didn't know that the show's title comes from the nursery rhyme, Goosey Goosey Gander. Upstairs, downstairs, and in my lady's chamber. So it's no surprise that the lives of the characters, upstairs and down, were often affected by scandal. Even Lady Marjorie was at it.
Nothing as wonderful as this has ever happened to me before.
We're up the creek, Jim.
What?
There's a little captain on the way. A little James Bellamy.
In our naked state, we're all equal, Rose. Do you hear me? Equal, equal, equal. We're all equal. And free!
Bene, carissima. I've been seeing quite a bit lately of Lady Dorothy Hale, you see.
Seeing a bit of...
Seeing all of her, if you really want to know.
Are you saying that Lawrence is not the father of the child you're carrying?
He couldn't please me himself in that direction, so he
delegated the task.
He what?
The series was originally created by the actors Eileen Atkins and Jean Marsh.
We would show the downstairs people as they'd never been shown before.
Daisy will have to see to the nursery meals. I'm not carrying no trays upstairs for no governess. It's Fred's place to do that.
No, it isn't, Daisy. I'm not the nursing footman.
Now, that is quite enough of that.
And then, of course, they have to serve somebody. So instead of it being downstairs, upstairs, it was upstairs, downstairs.
Upstairs Downstairs was also one of the first really popular drama series brave enough to deal with various aspects of sexuality. Some people thought they detected lesbian tendencies.
The thing that's confusing to people today is that they cuddled in bed. You thought, aye, but they were freezing cold.
But a more direct scandal involved the footman, Alfred, and a foreign nobleman. Due to an industrial dispute, this episode was made in black and white.
It suits you. Thank you, Baron. You've been using this?
You stupid boy!
A little touch. What will Elizabeth, her father, her mother say if you serve them at dinner and you stink? And now come here. And be forgiven.
I didn't know Alfred, my character, was going to be gay, and he fell for the Baron. And he was a good-looking guy, I didn't blame him. It was extremely risque.
Alfred left in disgrace, but sensationally returned on the run, having brutally murdered his lover.
He comes back as the axe murderer.
Don't kill me.
What you say that?
I never harmed you.
I never harmed you. I never intended to harm you. It's just for them. Protection. We'll go to the docks together.
I don't want to go.
What do you say?
Yeah, all right, I'll go.
It was choreographed, but the adrenaline started flowing, and I was actually getting interestingly apprehensive.
Please let go of my neck.
I'm all right with a knife. You can trust me, Chris. Don't worry about that.
He wasn't the only servant to go through the emotional mill. In one of my favourite episodes, the life of the innocent kitchen maid, Emily, just fell apart.
I never thought I would ever know anything as fine as this passion I have for you. There was nothing in my life before you, William, really nothing.
When she fell in love with William, she just assumed this would lead, presumably, to marriage. And then everybody around her was saying, you can't do this.
Emily, what's the matter with you?
Nothing, Rose, nothing.
Have you been getting at her again, Mrs. Bridges?
I was only telling her a few facts of life, Rose.
And leave me be, that's all, just leave me be.
She couldn't accept what was happening, and hence her tragic end.
Emily, I lie awake thinking about that poor dead girl.
Meals are always on time in this house, with Mrs. Bridges running the kitchens like the engine rooms of a battleship.
Oh, I think of Angela, I almost immediately smell attar of roses.
Well, I have a great deal of padding on the screen for Mrs. Bridges. An enormous bosom and a great backside and so on.
She was this little, very elegant, witty woman.
A kitchen maid in the drawing room? I've never heard of such a thing.
It was a much bigger character performance than people realise. The rasping voice, oh, Mr. Hudson, all that was all created by her.
Things isn't what they was.
Aren't what they was, if you please, Mrs. Bridges.
One of the great joys of the series is Gordon Jackson's superb portrayal of the butler, Hudson. Sometimes it was hard to tell who actually was the master.
You can't catch me! Yes, I can, and will you? Must be punished!
Hudson, Miss Georgina seems to have crumpled
Your fault.
the evening paper. Better see if you can straighten it out or something.
I'll ask Rose to run an iron over it.
When the cameras rolled, he just had a way of... He could see, like, Hudson came upon him as something happened underneath his nose and in his neck carriage, and his whole demeanour became Hudson.
I am sorry, sir, but I am not to serve the Chateaubriand Canton Act 93, sir, without special instructions.
Whose instructions? My father's?
I can only remind you, sir, that I believe the master would not wish it. Not today, sir.
And let me remind you, Hudson, that whatever your private views may be, and in the absence of my parents, I am in charge in this house. In the situation, I expect my orders to be obeyed.
Yes, sir.
Then do as you're told.
Yes, sir. The main thing about a butler, I discover, is that he leaves his personality downstairs when he goes upstairs. You mustn't bring your emotions upstairs. There's nothing worse than a butler saying, "Oh, I'm feeling ill today, my lord," or "I've got this..." You don't. You never say anything like that.
Of course not, Hudson.
It is simply a matter of discipline. This household is like a ship in His Majesty's Navy, sir. One small indiscipline can lead to mutiny. It must be nipped in the bud, sir. And on this occasion, I feel... Very good, sir.
As we will see, the show dealt openly and powerfully with the horrors of the First World War and with the changes that came in its wake, but it never forgot the lighter side of life.
Oh, what are we gonna do with Uncle Arthur? A blinking stallion is up. A video's are strolling in the park. Watch your step, goes especially after dark. Any old skirts a flirt for Uncle Arthur. He's over 80, but now he can run. Give us a kiss, me dearie, say, and tickle you up the bum, the ache, and say it was just an harmless bit, a nice bruise on you where you sit. Let me go, Uncle Arthur, kind of fun.
Upstairs, Downstairs beautifully reflected what life in London was really like between 1900 and 1930. In fact, I can honestly say it was the most informative and fascinating history lesson I ever had. I loved the way the show introduced devices that we take for granted, but were revolutionary at the time, like the early radio, which needed a massive aerial.
Oh, that's absurd, Edward. Imagine every house in London with a wee pole sticking up from the roof.
And it taught me about a time when change was in the air, especially in the age-old relationship between the classes.
I've quite decided that you're going home to Hoxton tomorrow afternoon.
No.
And I'm coming with you.
We can't. It wouldn't be right, Miss... Begging your pardon.
We'll raid the larder downstairs and burst into your parents' house and surprise them.
But that'd be stealing, miss.
Oh, no one will notice.
Daisy's rather reluctant, but Georgina, being very naive, is terribly pleased, and it all goes hopelessly wrong. But you see this appalling family background that Daisy's grown up in.
It's me, Daisy, Mum. Come to wish you happy Christmas and bring you something nice.
Christmas.
That was the first understanding that Georgina had ever been given in her life, that there was a class system, that people were not equal at all, and that she was dubbed better than the lower classes.
Oh, Daisy. I never knew that people could be so poor.
James also found it hard to come to terms with the fact that the world was changing.
Damn it, Hazel, you're my wife, not a cook!
Wives are often cooks where I come from.
Yes, well, they're not here and they never have been, so put that whatever it is away and go up to the morning where you belong. Leave the meals to Ruby.
I shall do nothing of the kind.
As my wife, you owe me obedience.
Don't you owe me something?
What? What's the matter with you?
If you don't understand that, then perhaps it's just as well our baby died.
People used to come up to me in the supermarket and say, "You bastard, how dare you treat your wife like that?" So it's only a story. They ran their trolley into mine,
How could anyone do that to Dishy Simon? Upstairs, Downstairs was the first television drama series to accurately and responsibly address the dreadful horror of the First World War. For me and the millions of other devoted viewers, it was a dramatic reminder that it affected everyone. No one of whatever class could escape its shattering effect.
Take care of yourself, Daisy.
It was incredibly real, and they did such a phenomenal job in recreating that scene.
Thanks for the bag, miss.
It was hard for me when I was shooting it to disassociate myself from the fact that I wasn't Georgina, that I was just this actress playing her. I truly felt really moved that day.
It's the war. I don't believe in it anymore.
Do you mean that we're not going to win?
He tells me what war is truly like. It still gives me chills of how he did that scene, and I can see him now in my mind's eye.
There can't be any argument, any dispute that is worth so many people's lives, so much blood. There's something monstrous, evil, mad about it all. It was very touching to know that it struck a chord in soldiers from all kinds of wars and watching it. I had a letter, I remember, saying, you never lose the sound of gunfire in the back of your mind, it's there.
My father, who I dedicate those war episodes to, was himself at Ypres, and he was shot through the face. And the stories that he told me were unbelievably horrific.
And Charlie Wallace, my pal, my best man, he just got back to duty and big heavy shell burst right beside him. He was trying to cut a gap in the Bosch wiring. He went right up in the air. When the smoke cleared, we saw him hanging there on the wire with his arm off. He had to stop out there all night, moaning. Couldn't get to him. They had his position covered, so he just stopped out there all night. In the morning at dawn, at stand 2, we could still see him hanging there on the wire. And he wasn't moaning no more. He was a wag, was Charlie.
After the war, the downstairs staff were joined by James Bellamy's former batman, Frederick.
I think when you come back, something's changed. Owen survived.
Excuse me, sir. Your whiskey and soda.
Fred would never be the same again. He might have said yes sir, no sir, but I think underneath Fred there was, I've had enough of being yes sir, no sir.
Look at you. Nice coat.
Yeah. He had ambition beyond his station. And good for Fred.
The war finished and people just went crazy. And that's what Georgina did.
I'm going to act in a film. What do you think of that?
Quiet! The costume was...
Okay, girls, this is the action.
A little top that was see-through and no underwear. And yes, I do remember that costume very well. I remember walking on the set going, I think I'm going to cross my arms.
Let me introduce you to your lover, baby.
Hello. It's Georgina.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
Well, come on. Get set, you two. Into your positions, please. Yeah, that's all right. Just as soon as the
Come on,
music
Frederick,
starts,
we'll
get
have
into
to.
a clinch.
Yes, miss.
Just keep clinching until gas.
No, you.
Oh, yeah.
Having Leslie sat on my knee was quite interesting in fishnet tights. An exciting moment.
Turn over! Action!
Excuse me, miss.
Stop! Who engaged him, eh? Who's responsible for this? That man has no right to be here, do you hear? He's one of my servants.
James is someone for whom the glass is always pretty well half empty. More than half empty.
We did love each other once.
Do.
No, did.
Don't take this away from me, Georgina. I haven't anything else.
They were the love of each other's lives. And I think that because it was forbidden and because it couldn't happen, led to both of them having very traumatic and sad times.
Life dealt James a final blow when the Wall Street crash devastated the existing financial system.
The money you invested, and my investments too, have been lost.
Lost, sir. All of it gone? Nothing left?
Nothing worth talking about.
The way they reacted couldn't have been more contrasting or more perfectly in character.
And I had to behave like a downstairs maid.
Oh, wasn't your fault, so was it? Anyhow, it never did mean much to me. Money.
Back out of the room, close the door, walk downstairs, and then rage and despair and hatred was permitted to me, but not in front of the perpetrator.
I only wanted to do a little, but he said there was no risk, it was safe, and now it's all gone.
Now, Rose, calm yourself. It's not the end of your life. You've still got us to look after you.
I don't want you to look after me. I want to look after myself, and now I can't. I'm stuck in this house the rest of my rotten days.
The series became such a fixture in British life that it was often parodied. The greatest accolade it could get was to be done by the biggest comedy star of the time, Stanley Baxter.
He did me brilliantly.
Oh, I wish things didn't have to change. This house is so full of memories. Remember the night that I came to you and told you that the old Queen had gone?
Yes, and I told you not to speak so disrespectful of Mr. Abs.
For me, Upstairs Downstairs took historical drama to a whole new level of excellence, both in terms of production and performance. Back in the early 1970s, it was a brave and ambitious gamble by ITV, but gosh, didn't it pay off?
35 years ago it was made. I think the series could well be watched in another 35 years.
Your 3-year-old, your 33-year-old, your 93-year-old that can watch it and enjoy it.
It was incredibly popular. I think it'll be remembered as a bit of a milestone in television history.
I'd like people to think it was bloody good, wasn't it?
It's nice to think it'll always be rolling around to be trotted out long after I've gone. Maybe some great-grandchildren of mine will go, look at him.
All good things come to an end, eh?
That's the only way to look at it, Rose.
I'd best go sort out the laundry.
Tony finds himself on the wrong side of the law, but